I'm Tracy Sable. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, mounting questions, a flock of birds, or possible Russian interference. Investigators look for answers on what caused an Azerbaijan Airlines flight to crash. Rising concerns. In the nation's first severe case of the bird flu virus, scientists suggest the illness mutated within a patient. Impeaching a president again. Chaos erupts in South Korea's parliament for the second time this month. And knocking on the door. Pope Francis makes Jubilee history. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us on the Feast of St. John the Evangelist. Our top story tonight, speculation is growing over the cause of a deadly plane crash on Christmas Day in the country of Kazakhstan. The crash killed 38 people and left 29 others injured. Aviation experts are casting doubt on Moscow's suggestion that it was caused from a bird strike. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us now with the latest. Eric.
Good evening, Tracy. Investigators continue to focus on Russia's air defense, believing that it may have been shot down. Here's what we know so far. The plane was flying from the Azerbaijan capital of Baku to the city of Grozny when it diverted for an unknown reason. Investigators say at some point the plane's GPS tracking system was jammed, causing it to divert from its original flight path. After flying east across the Caspian Sea, it came down and burst into a ball of fire just some 2 miles from the nearest airport. A day of mourning in Azerbaijan. Overnight, the bodies of those killed were transported back to the capital city, along with some of the 29 survivors who were fit to fly. Just today, the discovery of a second black box could help authorities figure out what went wrong. The country's deputy prime minister says it will take about 2 weeks to read the boxes. Now Russia is suggesting that a Ukrainian drone attack may have played a role.
Most of the outside experts who have seen pictures of the aircraft on the ground after it safely landed noted that there were puncture marks on the aircraft consistent with the use of a Russian air defense system. So it's basically the fact that Russia's at war with Ukraine and didn't close off the airspace here to civilian aircraft that caused people to die.
Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Russia and Ukraine, Evelyn Farkas, says all evidence points to Putin and Russia's air defenses as the cause.
But there are always politics, unfortunately, involved when you're talking about the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. Let's remember the aircraft is an Azerbaijani aircraft. Relations between Azerbaijan and Russia are kind of touch and go.
Russia's aviation watchdog says its preliminary investigation suggests the pilot made an emergency landing after a bird strike, but others disagree.
This wasn't something that happened and then the plane was brought down. For example, on landing, you hit a flock of birds. And the altitude makes me wonder, would the birds been at that altitude?
Azerbaijan Airlines has now suspended all flights to 8 additional Russian airports. The airline claims that the crash was, quote, due to physical and technical external interference. Even the White House says early indications suggest Russia shot it down. Tracy?
All right. Thank you for that, Eric. Another South Korean president is ousted after serving for only 2 weeks. This was a scene this morning as the country's National Assembly approved a motion to remove acting president Han Duck-soo. Han replaced former president Yoon Suk-yeol after he imposed martial law in the country. The opposition claimed that Han was refusing demands to complete Yoon's impeachment process.
Even in this dire reality, the people will ultimately triumph. Politics may appear to be led by politicians, but it is the people who truly drive it. No power can overcome the will of the people.
All right, now to Germany, where Parliament has now officially been dissolved, paving a way for early elections in 2025. It follows the collapse of Olaf Scholz's governing coalition last month. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier announced that his decision to move forward with a nationwide vote on February 23rd. He says that it is the only way to give the country a stable government capable of tackling its problems. Steinmeier also warned about outside interference in the polls, calling it a danger to democracy. democracy. While back here in the United States, as President Joe Biden prepares to leave office and President-elect Donald Trump gets ready to move in, the war in the Middle East continues to rage on, and it does not look like peace will be arriving anytime soon. Israel and Hamas accusing each other of complicating ceasefire efforts that could wind down the 14-month war. The last several hours, more fighting and explosions. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tracy, good evening. Heading into 2025, Israel is battling Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis. About 100 hostages are still inside Gaza, at least a third believed to be dead. Israel's air and ground offensive has killed more than 45,000 Palestinians, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, and Israel says it has killed more than 17,000 militants.
Explosions light up the night sky over the Gaza Strip, several blasts turning the sky orange. Gaza Civil Defense said that 15 people were killed late on Thursday when the Israeli military destroyed a home that was sheltering displaced people in the north of the Gaza Strip. The claim came as Israeli operations in northern Gaza intensified around Kamal Adwan Hospital, which Israeli soldiers allegedly stormed and burned after forcibly removing staff and patients. This video showing medical staff evacuating a patient from the ICU. The Israeli military said the hospital was being used by Hamas fighters. Also, Israel said it intercepted a missile fired by the Houthi rebels in Yemen. This, hours after Israeli warplanes bombed key infrastructure in Yemen, including an airport, where the World Health Organization's Director General was about to board a flight. At least 3 people killed and dozens injured. The United Nations condemning the escalation between Israel and Yemen.
The Secretary General remains deeply concerned about the risk of further escalation in the region and reiterates his call for all parties concerned to cease all military actions and to exercise utmost restraint.
In Israel, according to police, an elderly woman was attacked and killed by a Palestinian from the West Bank, and police say the suspect was arrested. It happened outside Tel Aviv.
This is a shocking terrorist attack. We found a woman, approximately 8 years old, outside the nursing home, unconscious on the sidewalk with stabbing wounds.
Meanwhile, a funeral for 5 journalists killed in an Israeli strike in Gaza. And 3 infants froze to death, sleeping in displacement tents, including a 3-week-old baby girl. The deaths underscoring the squalid conditions in Gaza's sprawling camps. And concerns growing about winter in the Gaza Strip, where around 2 million Palestinians are displaced, a shortage of blankets and warm clothing, and little wood for fires.
Also tonight, U.S. officials asked for and got a retraction of a report that warned that starvation deaths in North Gaza could reach famine levels as early as next month. The U.S. criticized the findings as inaccurate and irresponsible. The move drew accusations from aid and human rights figures of possible U.S. political interference. Tracy?
All right, thank you so much for that, Owen. Well, the holy town of Bethlehem is usually a popular destination during the Christmas season, but for the second year in a row, it remains caught in the crossfire of war. Father Patrick Briscoe wanted to show his support for the region, and he spent the week in the Holy Land. As the situation there grows dire, the number of Christian families is dwindling. And Father Briscoe joins us now. Father, great to be with you. So tell us, what is the situation there now?
Tracy, Merry Christmas here from Jerusalem. I've just been back, having spent 2 days in Bethlehem, and I have to be very honest, it is a despondent Christmas. The situation is extremely sad here. You know, the last year after the outbreak of the Israel-Hamas war, the Christian leaders of the Holy Land, the heads of churches and patriarchs, asked Christians not to display Christmas symbols to celebrate the season and to have instead muted celebrations. And they made a very similar declaration this year. They asked for kind of small signs of Christmas to be observed, but the major signs have not been. So, for example, on Christmas, when I joined the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem for the solemn entrance into Bethlehem, usually that's accompanied by thousands of Palestinian scouts that play very raucous music. Well, this year there were no instruments. There was no Christmas tree. It was a very muted gathering in Manger Square in Bethlehem. And that sense has extended throughout the region.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to hear this. And really, for the second year in a row, I mean, Christmas in the Holy Land has really been overshadowed about what's happening over there, the Israel-Hamas war. How are people dealing with this?
The thing that shopkeepers continue to say, they say over and over again, Father, please pray for Christians in the Holy Land because we don't know if we can stay. We don't know if we can stay. So whenever I spoke to people, they would tell me the situation. Many people didn't have their shops open at all, except for just a few days around Christmas. Think of all the income they've been losing because of that.
I want to talk about Cardinal Pizzaballa and his homily. Talk to us about that, and also the trip that he made.
Cardinal Pizzaballa is clearly one of the lights in the region. He's beloved by the people. Everywhere he goes, they celebrate his arrival with cheers. Everyone runs to him to meet him, to touch him, to be blessed by him. His Eminence is a rock star. There's no other way to put it. When I first met the Patriarch, I attended a press gathering at the Latin Patriarchate on Monday, and just hours before, His Eminence had returned from a charity mission, a goodwill mission before Christmas, where he had entered into Gaza itself. He said when he arrived at the press gathering, he said, friends, frankly, there is no more Gaza. There is no Gaza. He said the whole place is completely destroyed. The streets are in ruins. He talked about seeing children without shoes running throughout the place. He spoke of the great humanitarian needs, the need for food, the need for water. Currently in Gaza City at Holy Family Parish, there are 500 Christians sheltering at Holy Family Parish. They continue to be sustained thanks to the good work of Caritas. They coordinate relief efforts from Jerusalem, and they're supported in that work also by the Knights and Ladies of Malta. So there's an extremely attentive work to provide for their material needs, but also the Cardinal wants to provide for their spiritual needs.
Father Briscoe, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us about all this. We appreciate it. God bless you, and Merry Christmas.
God bless you, Tracy. Merry Christmas.
And we have a lot more still to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including rising concern. What we are learning about the first severe case of bird flu found in a patient in the U.S. And knock and the door shall be open. We'll show you how Pope Francis made Jubilee history. CDC now says testing on the Louisiana patient hospitalized with a severe case of H5N1, commonly known as the bird flu, finds the virus likely mutated in the person after they were infected.
Basically, the situation is that there's a lot of H5N1 in the U.S. It is being spread to humans via both cows as well as poultry and wild birds. And this has created essentially a nationwide risk for human exposure.
According to the CDC, the mutation means the disease could potentially become more transmissible to humans, but there is still no evidence this strain has been passed on to anyone else. All right, let's bring in Dr. Huaijun Zhou, a professor of animal science at the University of California, Davis College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences. Doctor, thank you so much for being with us today. According to the CDC, there are currently 65 confirmed cases of the bird flu here in the U.S., and that case out of Louisiana that we just mentioned is the first severe case so far of the illness. That said, should we be concerned?
Well, for sure, there's, more of those virus passed to the other species, like the cow, which prevails not able to infect the dairy cow. So, because basically the virus, when the virus infects the host, they start to replicate it. That's how happened of the mutation could generate it. So I have a more transmission, potential more mutation, and then the mutation depends where are those mutations generated. That's how those virus can be, infect other animals, other species.
Yeah, you mentioned the cows. I know there's concern about drinking raw milk. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, basically, because basically the virus replicated in the host, such as dairy cow. So, and then potentially those viruses will be replicated in the milk. And then if the milk don't pasteurize, and then virus could potentially pass to the human.
Yeah, and I know I know in Canada, excuse me, doctor, there was a case of a teen who was tested positive for the bird flu and was in critical condition due to respiratory complications. Do you think this is something that could potentially become an epidemic or pandemic, or are these simply isolated cases in humans?
Yeah, in general, for the current situation, still it's isolated case because haven't seen any of the data. Those virus can spread from human to human. That's the pandemic, you know. So the only basic transmission current is from, infected cow to humans, or infected chicken, and when the people, interact with the chicken infected with avian flu, that's how human get sick.
Yeah, and before I let you go, for those who are concerned, and many are, what should we look out for? What are some of the symptoms of bird flu in humans?
Well, it's similar like the regular flu. So basically, any respiratory, symptom like a sneeze, headache, fever, cough, all of these, it's a similar flu symptom.
Yeah, and what should people do if they think that they have it?
Well, I think first is definitely they need to go to the hospital for the exam. So because the hospital clinic can test what kind of strain they have.
Okay. Doctor, so thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Dr. Huaijun Zhou from California. Thank you. NASA has confirmed earlier today that its spacecraft has made the closest ever approach to the sun. NASA's Parker Solar Probe is the fastest spacecraft built by humans. The craft has come within 4 million miles of the sun. That is closer than the planet Mercury. Scientists hope the data from Parker will help them better understand how the sun works. Up next on EWTN News Nightly, a historic moment. Learn where Pope Francis opened the second holy door and the powerful meaning behind it. Plus, essential travel tips for making the most of this Jubilee year. Message, Pope Francis invites the faithful to pray for those being persecuted for their faith.
Ricordate questo. Dio perdona sempre.
On the feast of St. Stephen, the Holy Father focused on persecuted Christians around the world, celebrating the Church's first martyr. The Pope explained that St. Stephen appears to us as a witness of God who has one great desire, that all men be saved. Well, after the Christmas celebrations, Pope Francis reached Rebibbia Prison to open the second Jubilee Holy Door. For the Holy Father, this was the third visit to the prison during his pontificate. EWTN Vatican journalist Magdalena Walensky-Reedy has more.
It was a historic first when Pope Francis opened the Holy Door at the Rebibbia Prison.
Ho voluto che la seconda porta santa fosse qui.
I wanted the second Holy Door to be here, in a prison. I wanted each of us here, inside and out, to have the possibility of throwing open the door of our hearts and understanding that hope doesn't disappoint.
Che la speranza non delude.
It comes 2 days after the Holy Father, seated in his wheelchair, inaugurated the 2025 Jubilee of Hope by opening the Holy Door of the Vatican Basilica. Yesterday, though, the solemn ritual looked slightly different. On St. Stephen's Day, the feast of the first Christian martyr, the Holy Father stood up, knocked 6 times, and stepped over the threshold. Inside the prison's chapel, called Church of Our Father, 300 inmates, as well as police officers, chaplains, volunteers, prison guards and their families, stood in attendance.
This was not just a gesture of opening the door, but of the communion of a church on the road. Pope Francis has always insisted on a church that must go out, into the streets. And it must go out and meet people who are suffering to bring them back to the right path and to make them feel those who believe and who profess our faith.
Buongiorno e buon Natale.
During his homily, the Holy Father spoke directly to the prisoners, many sitting right in front of him. He emphasized how one of the graces of the Jubilee is to open hearts to hope. After the final blessing, the Pope addressed the prisoners again.
Non dimentichiamo.
Let's not forget two things we have to do with our hands. First, hold on to the rope of hope. Hold on to the anchor, to the rope. Never let go of it. Second, hearts wide open. Open hearts. May the Lord help us in all this.
At the end, the prisoners presented the Pope with a miniature holy door crafted from wood of migrant boats and prepared in the prison's Metamorphosis laboratory. While the other 4 holy doors open to Jubilee pilgrims visiting Rome are all in the Eternal City's historic basilicas, this 5th holy door stands alone, accessible only to inmates and staff at the prison, which Pope Francis called a cathedral of pain and hope. In Rome, Magdalena Wolinska-Riedi, EWTN News Nightly.
Well, it is beginning to look a lot like the Jubilee, and Rome is set to receive more than 30 million visitors from all over the world, with hundreds of events set for the upcoming year. Travel agencies specializing in pilgrimages are urging visitors to plan ahead and to pack their patience. Although organizers face various challenges with the more than 600 projects and restorations, the Vatican's chief Jubilee organizer says Rome and the Vatican are ready to give the best welcome to everybody. And joining us now with more is Teresa Tomeo, author, speaker, journalist, and host of Catholic Connections on EWTN Radio. She is also the woman behind Tease Italy and has explored almost all regions in Italy and has led more than 60 tours and pilgrimages to the country. Teresa, great to have you back on, my friend.
Hey, it's great to see you. Buon Natale, as the Pope said. Merry Christmas and Buon Capodanno. Happy New Year. And it's a delight to be with you again, Tracy.
Well, it's always delightful to be with you, my friend. Merry Christmas to you as well. You know, as we mentioned, tens of millions of people are expected to visit Rome during the Jubilee year. I know you know that. It's really exciting, but there could also be some challenges, especially if you're one of those who plan to travel to Italy. Talk to us about that.
Yes, as you said, you do need to pack your patience, but I do think despite the crowds, it will be a wonderful experience, and it's one not to be missed. I would advise, though, considering doing an organized pilgrimage or tour. Now, I know that traveling on your own through any country may sound very romantic, and if you've been to Italy before, it might be a little bit easier to navigate. But given the crowds, as you said, over 30, I've heard an estimate of as high as possibly 35 to 40 million people. If you think about the crowds, you think about waiting in line. When you're with a tour group or a pilgrimage group, as long as it's obviously a legitimate company, they're going to get you where you need to be, and you don't have to worry about all those details. And then you can plan time before, or maybe an excursion on your own afterward to do something extra. But I really advise people, if they're looking at the Jubilee year, because you want to go through the holy doors, you want to see the main sites, and you want to make sure you experience it. If you're going with a good Catholic company, you're going to see all that. And again, they take care of the details, so you can concentrate on just experiencing spiritually.
Yeah, that's important. I love that idea. What other advice do you have for folks?
Well, I think go beyond Rome. Once you do go through the holy doors, you have that experience. Since you're over there and you've taken the time and the money to travel all the way to Italy, I would go north, maybe to Assisi, maybe to Orvieto for the Eucharistic miracle. And you could do that even on a day trip. But I do advise, if you would like to see a little bit more of Italy, because Umbria is only an hour, hour and a half north or so of Rome, to really try to take advantage of that, because you'll get a very different feel for Italy, because the central region, where there's so many great saints, of course, soon to be St. Carlo Acutis, and you have St. Francis and St. Clare, it can really be a nice experience away from the hustle and bustle of the city. Or maybe even go a little bit further north and take a couple days and Tuscany for St. Catherine of Siena and some of those sites. But if you're going to be there, take the time maybe to expand it a day or two. Why not? You're already there, and Italy has so much to offer. And I talk about this in great detail in my new EWTN book, Tracy, that's coming out in January, Shrines and Wonders, Italy Shrines and Wonders. I'm so excited about the book.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it too. And we have so much more we can talk to you about. We're going to have you back on. We got to wrap it up. Teresa, great to see you again. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you. God bless you, my friend.
See you at the March for Life.
See you then. Looking forward to it. And we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.